What makes a great sports car? Is it blistering speed, razor-sharp handling, a connection between driver and machine that makes every moment behind the wheel an event? Or is it something deeper, the perfect balance of power, weight, and feel that turns a car from fast into unforgettable? However you may define it, the core principles remain timeless. A low center of gravity for agility, near-perfect weight distribution for balance, instant throttle response for control, and most importantly, a visceral connection between driver and machine. The best sports cars deliver raw feedback, precise steering, and an eagerness to attack every corner. But here's the problem. In the rush toward electrification, many modern EVs have lost sight of these fundamentals. Sure, they deliver insane acceleration, but at what cost? Heavy battery packs hurt agility, numb steering removes feedback, and synthetic exhaust notes are a thin replacement for the charms of a howling internal combustion engine. Not to mention the sky-high price tags. But what if there was an affordable electric sports car that was more than just another soulless machine bent on making you ill with every press of the accelerator pedal? One with a sharp focus on all the things that make a good sports car while also taking advantage of all the benefits that come from an electric powertrain. Wouldn't that be something?
Meet the Yangwang U9, aka SC01. It's not the quickest or the most expensive or the highest tech car we've ever reviewed on the Wheelsboy channel, but I think it might just be the most exciting. Why? Because there's never been anything else like it. An affordable electric sports car built purely for driving pleasure.
Welcome to Wheelsboy, where we cover the newest, coolest, and wildest vehicles from the Chinese car market. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. The goal of the team behind the SC01 wasn't to create another million-horsepower electric hypercar for billionaires to brag about. They wanted to make something that your average automotive enthusiast wanted and could afford. The result is an EV sports car that weighs just 1,365 kg and starts at just $32,000 US.
You heard that right. This is an electric sports car that weighs 1,365 kg or just 3,009 pounds. Compare that with the other famous Chinese electric supercar, the Yangwang U9. Now that car is an absolute technological tour de force with hydraulic suspension and a whole bunch of other stuff, but it also outweighs this car by 1,100 kg. Lower weight means that this car doesn't need quad motors and 1,500 horsepower in order to provide blistering performance. It has a dual motor powertrain, making 320 kilowatts and 560 newton-meters of torque. That's not as much power as most of the electric SUVs that we review on this channel. And yet, because it's so light, it has a 0 to 100 kilometer per hour time of just 2.9 seconds. One way they achieve that weight is simply by making this car very small. At 4.1 meters in length and 1.17 meters in height, it's about 20 centimeters longer than a Mazda Miata, but 10 centimeters lower. Underneath is a tubular space frame chassis made from chromoly steel. However, the front and rear subframes, as well as the body panels, are made of aluminum. Because the car is so small and low, you don't need massive 21 or 22-inch wheels in order to make it look proportionate. Instead, you can use these 18-inch, very light magnesium wheels. Pop open the bonnet and you can get a look at that tubular space frame chassis and the front motor. If you want proof that this is a serious performance machine, look no further than the push rod double wishbone front and rear suspension on this car. This has a series of advantages, including a ton of adjustability. We're talking things like toe angle, all the way down to Ackerman angle. With a few tools and a little bit of time, you can seriously change this car's driving dynamics to fit your preferences. You can also adjust things like the camber, the caster, the ride height, and everything through this car's suspension. This spring was developed by the team behind the SU01, and it also has adjustable compression and rebound. Now, pushrod suspension has the added advantage of taking more of the weight and pushing it farther towards the center of the car away from the edges. That lowers unsprung weight and lowers the car's center of gravity.
The biggest enemy when it comes to designing a good-looking, good-driving EV, however, is the battery. In the case of the SC01, it's a 60 kilowatt-hour ternary lithium pack with a claimed CLTC range of 500 kilometers. If they took that heavy battery and simply put it underneath the passenger compartment like every other EV, then they'd never be able to provide this super low, super sporty stance and seating position.
Their workaround was to use a mid-mounted battery. You've heard of a mid-engine car? Well, this is a mid-battery car. This battery is shaped to conform to the angle of the rear firewall, and by doing this, they were able to maintain this car's super low stance and the super low seating position inside. They were also able to maintain a super low center of gravity. How low? 380 millimeters. For context, a Subaru BRZ and a Porsche 911 are 460 millimeters. If you want to get down to 380 millimeters, forget all the supercars and everything. Go straight past them. You've got to start talking about GT-class race cars. This battery placement means they were also able to maintain a very respectable 47-53 front-rear weight distribution. And as an added bonus, you also get an absolutely gigantic rear trunk. I've never seen a larger trunk on a small sports car like this. I think, hold on, let me check. Yes? Yes? I can fit inside of it. I swear to God, it fit. Hey, wait a minute. Hey, this is not funny. This is not funny. Guys, it's hot in here. The next stop on Wheelsboy's EV tour is our most beautiful driving route yet, because we are going to China's Sichuan province, including the amazing cities of Chengdu and Chongqing. Yes, there will be pandas, and for those of you with a real sense of adventure, we're offering you the opportunity to extend your journey all the way to Lhasa in Tibet. This event begins in mid-August, so reach out ASAP to tour@wheelsboy.cn to learn more. If you watch my videos and complain about how the interiors of all Chinese EVs, and indeed new cars from pretty much every country, are bloated with tech and screens, then the SC01 is the car for you. Gaze in wonder at an interior that has no center screen, just a small instrument cluster screen. Sit slack-jawed at the array of delightfully tactile physical knobs and buttons that fill the dash and span the headliner. This headliner is where most of the action happens in the SC01. It includes your standard buttons, things like your engine start-stop, as well as, let's see, the trunk opening button here. You've also got your hazards, you've got your windshield wipers, and your lock-unlock. It does, however, have some much more unexpected buttons. For example, this is the drive mode selector. Some of these drive modes you're going to recognize: custom, normal, sport. But if we swing it all the way to the left, we go into rear-wheel drive mode. That means that it's completely turned off the front motor, and this is a pure rear-wheel drive only car. If we swing it all the way to the other side, it goes to front-wheel drive mode. It turns off the rear motor, so it's a pure front-wheel drive car. This is similar to what we saw in the SU7 Max, which has a master mode, which allows you to use a slider to move the power back and forth. But it's much simpler than that. It also means that when you buy this car, you get 3 different driving experiences for the price of one: a front-wheel drive sports car, a rear-wheel drive sports car, and an all-wheel drive sports car. Next to that is ESC mode, which you can have all on, half off, or if you're going to go full attack mode or RIP mode, depending on your driving abilities, you can turn it completely off. In the middle here is a button that's labeled NM, which I was sure stood for Newton meters and had to do with torque distribution, but apparently it doesn't actually do anything, at least not at this point. Later on, it might have that function or some other function, and they might change the button here. This is probably a good time to mention the fact that this is very much a pre-production vehicle, which goes a long way to explaining the quirks about it. For example, buttons like this that don't do anything, buttons that do the opposite of what they're supposed to do, panels that are missing from the interior, and the very shoddy paintwork and panel gaps on the exterior of the car. I know it looks bad. Trust me, it looks like a kit car, but apparently it is going to be much improved on the production version. Let's wait and find out if that's true. Just like many family SUVs here in China, this car has vehicle-to-load or V2L functionality. That allows it to power external devices such as an air conditioner or a refrigerator when you go camping, something no one will ever do in this car. However, theoretically, it could also power your tools when you're in the pits of the racetrack. Finally, and perhaps most hardcore, is this. A button that activates the battery cooling mode. That's a bunch of fans in the back that will suck out or extract all the hot air around the battery. Not only is it great for track work, it also acts as a pretty good hair dryer. In order to discourage you from taking your hands off the wheel at any time, the turn signal stalks have been removed and replaced with these little paddles on the top of the wheel here. You can turn on your left and right turn signals. You've got other buttons like these little switches here that control things like flickering your high beams, setting your cruise control, just basic cruise control here, and then also some button clusters on the bottom left and right. Now, the bottom right one here, this is used to control your media, so it's your play, pause button, skip track, volume, etc., etc. That media includes Bluetooth connection as well as a wired smartphone connection, so you can enjoy your media through the 6-speaker Edifier sound system. I think technically that thing is surround sound, simply because this interior is so small that 6 speakers is plenty to cover all the angles. Here between the seats, you have your transmission buttons. Reverse, neutral, drive, right there. There's no P. That's because just like a manual transmission car or an original Wuling Hongguang Mini EV, there's no park button. Instead, you put it into neutral, and then you use this real manual handbrake. Funny story, according to the founder of this company, the hardest supplier to find wasn't one for the radio, wasn't one for the motors or the batteries. It was actually someone that would supply them with a real handbrake. Apparently, almost nobody makes them anymore. One small complaint about the ergonomics of this handbrake, however, if I adjust my seat, the fixed standard real carbon fiber seats, to anything approaching a good distance from the steering wheel, all of a sudden it's really hard for me to reach down and grab this. Not great if you really want to hoon this baby. The interior of the SC01 obviously isn't luxurious in the least. I mean, these plastic buttons clearly came straight out of a supplier's catalog, and, well, the sound of the door slamming sounds like, I don't know, you maybe kicked a dumpster? But buyers can get a luxury experience because almost every single surface in this car is customizable. You can customize the stitching. You can then customize these real carbon fiber seats, the color of them, to match that stitching. Pretty much every panel on this interior that you can touch is personalizable in both color and material. You want real leather? Okay. You want Alcantara? Okay. You want ultra suede? And again, pretty much any color you can imagine? Okay. I call this luxurious because this is a level of personalization that you normally only get on incredibly expensive vehicles like Ferraris, McLarens, Rolls-Royces, and the like. These options also really aren't that expensive. Most of them hover around $100. The most expensive are really around $1,000. Obviously, if you want to get a crazy paint-to-sample exterior color, that's going to increase the price. But they're pretty down to earth. Compare that to something like the Porsche catalog. I invite you to go to the Porsche website and try to customize a 911. See what you can get for $100. The answer is nothing. So why and how are they able to do this? The why is pretty simple. You save a lot of money when you do it yourself. They're a very small company, minuscule, honestly, smaller than most suppliers out there, and so finding outside suppliers will be pretty expensive compared to keeping it in-house. They're able to keep it in-house because customizing and restoring cars was actually their first business. Their company headquarters here in the port city of Tianjin is mostly devoted to that work. The room next door has some incredibly cool cars. We're talking about the cleanest 1999 BMW E36 that I have ever seen in my entire life, and an absolutely amazing Brabus G-Wagon Cabriolet that I would love to show you, but I am not allowed to film. God, I wish I could drive that car. While we're talking about the background of this company, it's probably worth addressing the fact that this car is technically branded as a Yichi, which is a brand owned by Jiangling, which is a Chinese automaker. Now, Jiangling here in China is not famous for making a lot of great cars. In fact, abroad, it's probably the most famous for making a car called the Landwind X7, a ripoff of the Range Rover Evoque that was so blatant, Range Rover actually won a lawsuit here in China and they were forced to stop selling it. Not the best of bedfellows, but they didn't really have a choice because Jiangling was the only Chinese company that was willing to work with them, and here in China, you can't produce a car unless you have a permit, and those permits belong to existing car makers at this point. I don't know about you, but I am willing to forgive Jiangling for the Landwind X7 because they helped us to make this happen. This car is incredible. It is with sincere regret that I report we will not be able to take the SU7 on a racetrack today. Instead, we're going to be on public roads like this, but I'm very happy to say that I think the specialness of this car shines through even in more mundane circumstances. In some ways, this reminds me a lot of the Xiaomi SU7 Ultra because it provides an outrageous level of performance for an outrageously low price. Perhaps it's no surprise then that the CEO of Xiaomi, Lei Jun, is one of the investors in this company. Having said that, this car is also very different than the Ultra, because the Ultra ultimately is a family sedan. It's a 1,500 horsepower family sedan, but it's still something that people need to be able to drive every single day. This, however, is a much more focused, hyper-focused vehicle. The only thing that this car cares about is driving, is making it as engaging as possible. The car that this really reminds me of the most actually isn't another road car. It's a track-only car, the NIO EP9, a $2.5 million car developed by NIO's Formula E team. And again, it was track-only. I got a chance to take that around a racetrack, albeit pretty slowly if I'm being honest, a few years ago. And what left the strongest impression on me was how visceral that driving experience felt, how raw it felt. You could hear everything happening in the car, and that is what made it so engaging. This car is the same. The stiffly sprung suspension and the really, really low center of gravity means that this thing is dead flat in corners and also under braking and acceleration. The accelerator pedal, oh my God, it's like a light switch. There is zero delay between pedal press and power delivery. The steering in this car also has a level of feedback and accuracy that I've never experienced in any other EV, and frankly, I don't know if I've ever experienced it in any other gas car either. It's so tight, it's so taut. You can feel exactly what the wheels are doing, exactly what the road is like underneath of those wheels. It's awesome. The steering has two different modes. Comfort mode, which is basically like any other kind of sports car. Hefty, a decent amount of weight to it. Then there's sport mode. Sport mode feels like the steering pump is broken and you have no power assist. There is, by the way, apparently a version of this car you can get that has no power assist, no air conditioning, no brake pump. So there's no brake booster, so you have no power assist on the brakes either. That's the hardcore track version. No thank you. Of course, not everything that separates this car's experience from your average EV could be considered good. Take, for example, the motor whine, which you've been hearing this entire time, I'm sure. It's very loud. The reason for that is two things. One, lack of sound deadening. Two, the power that is being pushed from the battery to the motor is very high, about 2 or 3 times higher than your average car. Now, it's nearly constant because in addition to when you're accelerating, which obviously that's when the power is coming out, also when you're braking, you're hearing it as well because it's using regen, so it's using the motors. There is one way to decrease motor whine, and that's by putting it in either rear-wheel drive or front-wheel drive mode up here on the headliner. That turns off one of the motors and obviously halves the motor whine. However, that does mean you are less than half as fast. I do want to point out that the driving experience between those two different modes is noticeably different. Front-wheel drive feels like a front-wheel drive, feels like you're being pulled along and you kind of plow into the corners. Rear-wheel drive, well, feels like a rear-wheel drive car. It's much easier to put it into a slide, but they are much less powerful in those modes because you have half the power. So personally, I kept it in sport mode. So this thing is not a commuter car. I mean, there's no storage space in here to speak of apart from a tiny little compartment here. There's no cup holder. It's loud. The ride is harsh, very harsh, even in this comfort setting for the suspension. When you go over a speed bump, it feels like you're riding a mechanical bull. And part of this is due to the fact that this is a pre-production car, an early pre-production car, and they tell me that the production versions are not going to have some of these issues, or at least NVH is going to be improved a lot. I hope they don't improve it too much, though, because this car's motor whine and the sound of the suspension and the creaks and all these things, these are part of the charm. These are part of what makes it feel so mechanical, so engaging in a way that no other numb EV has ever felt. I think what makes the SC01 feel special, feel different when compared to almost every other EV I've ever driven, is the fact that it wasn't built to appeal to as many people as possible or to please as many people as possible. It was built with one very small, very specific audience in mind. Car enthusiasts. Car enthusiasts like me. I am truly invested in seeing this car succeed, not because I'm literally invested in the company or because they're paying me to do this video. They are not. It's actually quite the opposite. We paid money to come up to Tianjin to be able to have a chance to drive this car. I had to pay for hotels and transport for 3 different people. I'm invested in seeing it succeed because I want to live in a future in which there are affordable, small, incredibly fun to drive electric cars like this everywhere, available for everyone. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. See you next time. This is Justin. He's my coworker at Wheelsboy. Justin, do you want to share the good news with the people?
I bought one.
He bought one! Yes! Wheelsboy is taking delivery of an SC01 later this year.